Other news tonight, Saudi Arabia announces a truce in Yemen will begin next Tuesday to allow humanitarian aid in, and the U.S. Secretary of State says a truce is not peace but may allow for an extension. British Prime Minister David Cameron returns to Downing Street, with the Tories defying the polls and giving the Labour Party a slender majority. And a Pakistan military helicopter carrying diplomats to inspect the tourism project crashes in the north of the country, killing 7 people. Good evening and welcome to a new edition of the news. We begin with the crisis in Yemen, and the Saudi-led forces carried out airstrikes in Yemen's Sada province and warned all civilians to leave. The leadership of the coalition dropped leaflets to warn the civilians the province, a stronghold of the Houthi rebels, would be a military target as of this evening. Yesterday, Saudi Arabia said it would respond forcefully to cross-border Houthi attacks that started on Tuesday and has targeted the province with airstrikes since then. The official Saudi news agency SPA said the air raids had hit 4 Houthi command and control centers, 2 in the Sada provincial town of Bani Maz, and destroyed a mine factory in the ancient quarter of Sada city, as well as communication hub in the Muthallath area. UN resident coordinator in Yemen, Paolo Lembo, said he is hopeful of a humanitarian truce in Yemen to allow in much-needed shipment of food and emergency aid. His remarks came after Saudi Arabia offered a 5-day pause in hostilities on condition that the Houthi also stop fighting. Lembo noted only a durable, lasting truce would give the time needed to make an impact, noting that such a move would help the UN get aid into the country. Lembo said many innocent lives are being threatened by the UN instability to deliver aid, from food to medical supplies, crucial to ease shortages that paralyzed hospitals.
It evolves from bad to worse, hour by hour, in spite of the repeated appeal of the Secretary General to come to a ceasefire, in spite of the repeated appeal of the international community, short of a ceasefire, at least to allow us to have some humanitarian pause to help those that are suffering life-threatening risks at this point of time. The road network has been seriously damaged also, will make it not easy to move commodities from one corner to the other of the country. But it will give an important signal that may have positive consequences throughout the country at this point in time.
Meanwhile, in Paris, the Yemen crisis, as well as a permanent deal with Iran, topped a meeting between U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry and counterparts from Gulf states. Kerry met the foreign ministers of Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, Oman and Bahrain, as well as the head of the Gulf Cooperation Council. The Paris meeting will lay the groundwork for a summit next week in Washington and Camp David between U.S. President Barack Obama and the six-nation GCC. Kerry said a truce announced by Saudi Arabia starting next Tuesday is not peace, it is a renewable commitment and opens the possibility of an extension. He was speaking at a joint news conference with Saudi Foreign Minister Adel Al-Jubeir.
We now know that to a certainty on Tuesday at 11 p.m. Yemen time, a ceasefire will take place countrywide, providing that the Houthi agree that there will be no bombing, no shooting, no movement of their troops or maneuvering to reposition for military advantage, no movement of heavy weapons or others, that the ceasefire is conditioned on the Houthis agreeing to live by these commitments.
I wanted to also pick up on something that I mentioned to you yesterday when we announced that we were looking at a 5-day ceasefire in Yemen for humanitarian purposes in order to allow the flow of humanitarian assistance to Yemen. We have made a decision that the ceasefire will begin this Tuesday, May 12th at 11 p.m. and will last for 5 days and is subject to renewal if it works out.
Over to Syria, where Syrian army and Hezbollah fighters have made advances in the Qalamun mountain range along Syria's border with Lebanon, according to a Hezbollah official. Hideouts in the Qalamun mountains north of Damascus have long allowed the Al-Qaeda-linked terrorists to attack Syrian soldiers and Hezbollah fighters in the borderlands along Lebanon's eastern flank. A Hezbollah statement said today the Syria army and Hezbollah were in control of around 100 square kilometers of Al-Qalamun mountain by late yesterday after advances in the strategic area of Asal al-Ward and Qarna Height. Hezbollah said 3 of the fighters were killed in the battles that continued into the day today. A Twitter account from an alliance of radical groups, including the Nusra Front, said scores of Hezbollah fighters were killed, but Hezbollah rejected the report and said dozens of Nusra Front fighters were killed and large amounts of weapons and vehicles were captured and destroyed. British Prime Minister David Cameron has returned to Downing Street, with the Tories having defied polls and won the general election. The Conservatives made gains in England and Wales, securing 331 seats in the Commons, giving the Labour Party a slender majority. Opposition leader Ed Miliband quit his position and said his party must rebuild with a new leader after his Labour Party suffered a heavy defeat in the election. Here's more in this report.
British Prime Minister David Cameron says he's ready to get back to work after a resounding election win that gives his Conservative Party a majority in Parliament.
Our manifesto is a manifesto for working people, and as a majority government, we will be able to deliver all of it. Indeed, it is the reason why I think majority government is more accountable.
Cameron's victory overturned poll predictions that the vote would be the closest in decades. The vote left Cameron's Labour Party opponents in tatters, with its leader Ed Miliband resigning.
Britain needs a Labour Party that can rebuild after this defeat, so we can have a government that stands up for working people again. And now it's time for someone else to take forward the leadership of this party.
He wasn't the only politician to step aside. Nick Clegg of the Liberal Democrat Party also resigned, as did Independence Party leader Nigel Farage, who lost his own bid for a seat. Cameron says his party is now free to deliver on its promises, including a vote on membership in the European Union.
And yes, we will deliver that in-out referendum on our future in Europe. Thank you.
Cameron says he wants to stay in the bloc, but only if he can renegotiate Britain's relationship with Brussels. The issue was the central theme of Cameron's campaign, and with his re-election could now begin to change the face of Europe.
Londoners voiced their surprise at election results that was believed to be the closest race in a generation. The shock result whipped out a generation of party leaders: Labour, Liberal Democrats and United Kingdom Independence Party, as each resigned in quick succession.
Yeah, a little bit surprised, but especially the last 2 days when the polls been sort of showing them evens or 1% ahead for Labour. So, yeah, pleasantly surprised. But honestly, I will be gutted, mother, gutted, right, if Labour get into power.
Hopefully we're going to get a government that's progressive, and there'll be a coalition of progressive parties that are actually going to change society rather than the same old, same old.
A Pakistan military helicopter carrying diplomats to inspect a tourism project crashed in the north of the country, killing 7 people. The ambassadors of Norway and the Philippines and the wives of the Malaysian and Indonesian ambassadors, along with 2 pilots and a crew member, were killed in the crash over the mountainous northern region of Gilgit. A military spokesman said initial information indicated the cause was a technical fault, while the Pakistani Taliban claimed they shot down the aircraft, saying they had hoped to shoot down the aircraft of Pakistan Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. Nawaz Sharif was traveling to the same location on a separate aircraft when the crash took place. 17 people were on board the Mi-17, including other foreign diplomats. Some of them were injured. German Chancellor Angela Merkel said in Berlin there will be no alternative to solidarity among EU countries when it comes to taking in refugees fleeing wars in violent countries such as Syria, Afghanistan and Libya. Estimates show around 400,000 refugees will arrive in Germany this year, double the number last year. The issue has become more acute after up to 900 people drowned last month trying to reach Europe from Libya. The surge in refugees to Germany has led to tensions in some regions where there are few, if any, foreigners. And European Union Foreign Policy Chief Federica Mogherini said she has not given up hope of winning backing from the United Nations Security Council for international intervention in Libya to help stop the flow of migrant boats. Mogherini has proposed sending European military teams to help stabilize Libya if a ceasefire agreement can be agreed between the two rival governments. Speaking at a conference in Florence, Italy, she said for any outside military mission to succeed, consent would be needed from both a Libyan government and the Security Council. Mogherini is due to address the Security Council on Monday, but she acknowledged that agreement or backing from both sides would be difficult. There is a new and very important role for Europe to play, said Mogherini, adding that she is counting on support from Lithuania, which holds the Council's rotating chair in May, and on Spain. A diamond brooch given by Spain's King Alfonso XII to his wife as a wedding gift will be put on for auction for the first time in Geneva next week. It is one of the highlights of the sales of more than 350 pieces of jewelry that could fetch more than 80 million on the 13th of this month. Comprised of scores of gems set into a shape suggesting a fleur de lis, the brooch, also known as devant de corsage brooch, was offered to Archduchess Maria Christina of Austria in November 1879 by her husband to mark their wedding. It remained with the family from the time of Maria Christina's death in 1929 until the 80s. Among other items, the sales also include the 35-carat Kashmir sapphire, a very rare gemstone expected to sell for $3 to $4.2 million. Police and fire officers in the U.S. state of Arizona thought they were about to embark on a grim investigation when they received reports of human remains at the bottom of a Colorado river. Much of the relief of the emergency crews, it turned out the so-called remains were just two fake skeletons enjoying a tea party. A video posted online showed the discovery of the underwater bash by a buckskin fire department diver in a stretch of the river near Ciega Spring. A statement attached to the video said officers were responding to reports that a snorkeler had spotted human remains, but what dive crews found was two fake skeletons sitting in lawn chairs wearing sunglasses and clothing. A regional news website reported that two people, both divers themselves, have come forward to claim responsibility for creating the skeleton tea party for their own amusement. We begin with football. Barcelona coach Luis Enrique said his upcoming La Liga match against Real Sociedad this weekend is of vital importance. League leaders Barcelona played Real Sociedad in January in their first match after the Christmas break and lost 1-0. Both Lionel Messi and Neymar were left on the bench in the first half, and reports of the rift between Messi and Luis Enrique surfaced in the Spanish media for weeks after the clash. Luis Enrique said his team was prepared for what could be a dangerous match against David Moyes' Sociedad, who are 11th in the league. And finally, it will be cool for the rest of the night in hilly areas and pleasant in other parts of the kingdom. Tomorrow, moderate weather conditions prevail in most regions, with northwesterly moderate winds picking up at times. The Gulf of Aqaba can expect a hot day tomorrow with moderate winds and slightly high seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. And to end the news, here's a recap of our top stories. Saudi Arabia announces a truce in Yemen will begin next Tuesday to allow humanitarian aid in, and the U.S. Secretary of State says a truce is not peace but may allow for an extension. British Prime Minister David Cameron returns to Downing Street with the Tories defying the polls and giving Labour Party a slender majority. And a Pakistan military helicopter carrying diplomats to inspect a tourism project crashes in the north of the country, killing 7 people. And with this we come to an end. I'm Farah Ajlouni. Thank you for watching and have a good night.